Section 2. What is a pole shift? I have mentioned the shift of the Earth's crust over its core, which accompanies every passage of the Nibiru system once every 3,600 years or so. So let's break it down further. Once the Nibiru system enters our inner solar system, it affects not just planet Earth, but the other planets as well. For example, since 2003, scientists have noticed climate change on both Jupiter and Mars, something you can look into on your own. For 20 years, these symptoms get stronger and stronger as Nibiru gets closer and closer until, in the final weeks before the pole shift, Nibiru breaks free of the particle flows of the inner solar system and speeds up for its flyby of planet Earth. When it does fly by planet Earth, it grabs Earth magnetically and spins it around, causing the crust to shift over the core. As the Nibiru system then flies away back towards the Sun's dead twin, the Earth returns to normal, but with the ice caps and equator in different locations. This is the aftermath. Once the Nibiru system enters our inner solar system, as it did in 2003, it begins its slow 20-year climb up to the Earth's orbital plane. This is a lot of ground to cover, 93 million miles. The first effect this has is that Nibiru's magnetic field interacts with a molten iron core of planet Earth, churning it and creating friction with the crust. This friction warms the oceans from the bottoms up, which in turn warms the air, creating global warming. Yes, global warming is real. No, it's not caused by your SUV or forest fires or something. The second effect is that Nibiru's magnetic field pushes on the Earth's magnetic north pole once every rotation, causing the Earth to wobble on its axis like an unsteady top. This Earth wobble starts out small, as it did in 2004, and gets progressively greater and greater, causing an irregular jet stream, which then wreaks havoc with the weather. So between global warming and the Earth wobble, you get record-breaking weather, blending of the season. So has anybody noticed record-breaking weather in the last few years? All this churning and wobbling work together to loosen the tectonic plates, which bump and grind more and more as Nibiru approaches. This leads to increased earthquakes, increased volcanic eruptions, increased electromagnetic pulses, which bring down airplanes, methane release, which kills fish in the ocean and wildlife on land, and unexplained trumpet sounds or howls in the atmosphere. Finally, as we showed on the comet slide, Nibiru's tail is getting blown away from the sun towards the Earth, and on occasion the tail will lash the Earth. When this happens, red dust and oil settles into our atmosphere, causing red-stained air and water, blood red water, and the oil causes rainbow clouds and also causes second sun sightings. A second sun sighting is when sunlight gets focused down the tail of Nibiru like a long twisted flashlight, which then shines onto certain parts of the Earth, making a second sun appear in the sky. I will show examples of this later. Busy slide, but we have to underscore these dynamics, because these dynamics, this is driving everything going on our planet right now. In the final weeks before Nibiru passes by the Earth and causes our physical poles to shift places, several notable things occur. First, the Nibiru system leaves the sun's glare and becomes visible to the naked eye during the daytime. We see this depicted in ancient tablets from the time of the last pole shift. The Nibiru system will start out looking like a fuzzy red ball, which gets bigger every day, much like these captures of the Nibiru system taken by the webcam at the Neumayer Research Station in Antarctica. What else? The tail of Nibiru will lash the Earth more frequently as it approaches, causing red dust in the air, a reddish hue to the water, and more fires and meteors. The Earth wobble will become very extreme, leading to high coastal flooding, more earthquakes, and more volcanic activity. Finally, right before the pole shift occurs, Nibiru grabs Earth in its magnetic grip. The Earth's rotation slows, stops, even reverses, but only temporarily. This will lead to unusually long days on one side of the Earth and unusually long nights on the other. Have you ever heard the term 3 days of darkness mentioned in certain religious texts? This is why. By the way, gravity is not affected by this rotation stoppage, as gravity is dependent on the mass of the planet, not its movement. And then finally, the pole shift occurs. All within the space of a couple hours, a massive earthquake is felt world over as the crust slips over the Earth's core. Hurricane-force winds accompany this earthquake. All active volcanoes should erupt at this point, and the oceans slosh hundreds of feet over their shores, and this sloshing lasts for days. As the Nibiru system releases its grip on planet Earth and then continues back on its 3,600-year journey to the Sun's dead twin, the Earth's orbit slowly returns to normal, except it is rotating now on a different axis with a different equator, and the north and south poles in different locations. Here's one example of how it might look. Sea levels will rise as the old ice caps melt. Climate experts estimate 100 to 200 feet of sea level rise from melted ice caps, whereas pole shift researchers add an additional 400 feet onto that from heating of the ocean due to all the friction caused by the slipping crust. As you might recall from high school physics, when water is heated, its volume increases. Also, there will be swelling of the crust from all the additional heat. So there's swelling and volume increase. So sea levels should rise way beyond 200 feet. We expect total sea level rise over 600 feet a few years after the pole shift. Over time, new ice caps form and the oceans cool back down, lowering sea levels back to where they were before. Remember all those volcanoes erupting? All that ash in the sky will last for several years. It will look something like the 2009 movie The Road with Viggo Mortensen. That movie actually portrays a pole shift scenario where society has collapsed and the weather is constantly ashy and drizzly with rain as people migrate around trying to survive and figure out what happened. Finally, survivors of the pole shift will find that much of the land on planet Earth has been reconfigured. And it's not going to look just like this map, but that's an example of what, just an imagination example. The tectonic plates have moved big time, and we can tell from past pole shifts what direction they tend to go. The Atlantic Ocean always gets pulled apart and down. India always gets shoved under the Himalayas, pushing Mount Everest up and sinking India. The west coast of the United States generally gets pushed up a little bit. The east coast gets pulled down. The Andes get pushed up. New Zealand goes up. Flooding turns Europe into mostly islands. Eastern Russia does well. Western Russia gets flooded. Japan gets shaken into oblivion by earthquakes. So that is the aftermath of the pole shift. So quick recap. Nibiru is a planetary system that swoops through our solar system once every 3,600 years, roughly. Over its 20-year approach past the Sun, it causes climate change, earthquakes, then a shift of the Earth's axis. And after the pole shift, the ice caps of planet Earth generally end up in different locations, and the climate is different throughout the planet. If Nibiru flies by Earth every 3,600 years or so and spins our planet around, let's see where the North and South poles used to be, based on evidence of glaciation. Let's start just shy of 15,000 years ago. At this time, the ice cap of the North Pole sat over Europe and Scandinavia. The Nibiru system came through for its regular passage and whoosh, pole shift. At about 12,600 BC, the North Pole moved from Europe to Siberia. Yeah, there it is. After 3,600 years went by, here comes the Nibiru system again, and whoosh, pole shift just under 11,000 years ago, with the North Pole moving to the Bering Sea and Alaska. This pole shift made quite an impression on the planet as it resulted in the great flood of legend of Noah. Sea levels rose permanently at this time, sinking many coastal cities. Most of the giant mammals of North America died out, and climate change turned the Sahara from a desert into a savanna. Then 3,600 years went by, and here comes the Nibiru system again. Whoosh. Pole shift. The new North Pole is over North America. This pole shift saw the Sahara turn from savanna back into a desert, and saw the inundation of the Black Sea, which was mostly dry before that. 3,600 years go by, and here comes the Nibiru system for its most recent passage. And whoosh, pole shift. This latest pole shift saw the biblical Exodus, the late Bronze Age collapse, the Chinese Jia dynasty collapse, Mohenjo-Daro abandoned, and of course, new climates worldwide. Every pole shift changes the climate in every location on Earth, sometimes changing it a little, sometimes changing it a lot. This brings us to the present day, with the polar ice caps sitting over the Arctic Sea in the north and Antarctica in the south.